everyone, and welcome to the middle school quarterly webinar where we are going to be talking about some skills building. For this webinar, everyone is going to be camera and mic off, so it's really important that if you have any questions that come up during the webinar, you chat them into the little chat box to one of us. We will talk about those at the end of the webinar. As we have time. There might not be time for all the questions, depending on how many there are. And hello to everyone. I see y'all in chat there. So we won't be stopping the webinar to answer questions, but we will have time at the end. So it's really important that you use that chat to ask questions as we go and just keep those ready. Meeting is recorded and that recording will go out later. So if you are somebody who is like, I have to frantically keep notes during this webinar so I don't forget anything, don't worry about it. A copy of the slides as well as a recording will go out. So, just listen to the information, pay attention, and you should be fine. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So glad that you are all here today. So I'm going to start by introducing everyone who's here today. We have Mrs. Wilson, who is the middle and elementary counselor assistant. And Mrs. Blackburn is also here, and she is the 6th through 7th grade counselor and elementary school, middle school lead counselor. We've got Mrs. Schneider here, who is the 8th grade counselor. And then me, I'm Miss Benedict, and I'm the director of school counseling. We also have Mrs. Neems Thompson joining us from our bronze program. She's our bronze counselor. I don't think we have any bronze kids here today, but you might know some. And so there you go. All right, so today we are going to talk about some academic skills for success. How can you be a better student? We're near the end of the first quarter, so now is really the time to start focusing, seeing what you can do to get those grades up, or maybe just, feel a little bit more on top of your pacing, just how you can do better in your classes. Well, we're going to talk about Livebinder, and if you have used that resource, that's awesome. If you haven't, we're going to probably try to sell you on why it's so helpful and you should look into it. Talk about studying for quizzes and tests, give you some resources that you might find helpful, and then we're going to go into talking about bullying awareness and cyber safety, as well as groups and what those are, and then how to contact your counselor. And then I said, like I already said earlier, if you have questions, just chat them into the chat, and we might not answer them right away, but we do intend to answer as many as we can at the end of the webinar. All right, so I am going to talk about some academic skills for success. So if you're at this point and you're thinking like, I really want to work on improving my grades, or I really want to catch up on my schoolwork because I'm a couple of assignments behind, or whatever else, now is a great time to start thinking about that, because we're only 25% of the way through the school year. I know that's kind of like a bummer to hear sometimes, because it's like, oh, we're only 25% of the way. But on the plus side, we're only 25% of the way through. So there's still time to make changes if you're not feeling good about where you're at right now with school. So the first thing we're going to recommend is that you use Livebinder. I'll talk a little bit more about Livebinder on the next slide, so I'm not going to go too in depth here. There's a link on here that you'll get, so don't stress about that if you don't have it. But essentially, Livebinder is extra resources your teachers have. Again, I'll touch back on that again in a minute here. But use those resources. Spend more time on each lesson. That's a big thing I see a lot, is I'll get a lot of students who are like, I'm ahead on my courses, I don't know what to do. And we'll go and look at their classes together, and they'll be averaging like, low C's maybe, or something like that in their grades, which that is just fine. If that's the best you can do, that's great. But with some of these kids who are spending like 5 minutes in their assignment, we start talking about like, maybe something you can do is spend a little more time in there, make sure you're reading through all the material, make sure you're watching the videos, make sure you're rereading questions and answering what they're asking you to answer, and just kind of slow down a little bit. We generally recommend that students try to spend about 40 minutes per assignment. Now, granted, if you're, really great at a subject, like maybe you're just a math pro, it might not take you that long, and that's just fine. Or maybe, math is harder for you and it might take you a little longer, and that's also just fine. There's wiggle room there. But if you're spending like 5 minutes in a class and you're like, I don't know why I'm not doing better, it's probably because you need to just slow down a little bit, give yourself a little time. So that's something you can work on. Double check your answers. Again, this kind of goes to slowing down. Don't speed through. Once you answer a question, reread the question, then reread your answer and go, does my answer answer everything that it's supposed to for this question. And if you find that, oh, I missed giving 3 examples, or I misunderstood the question, that gives you a chance to redo it, which again will help your grades. So always double check your answers before you turn them in. Take handwritten notes. You can use those on quizzes and tests. That's like a free, it both helps you study, and then you can also use it on quizzes and tests. So it's like a double whammy of bonuses there. So for all of your classes, this can be something that can be kind of challenging for students I've worked with, because you have to find the right balance of taking good notes and not taking too many notes and not taking too few notes, and what do you focus on? And that can be pretty challenging. But what I always tell students is, like, try a couple different ways. Try focusing on vocab, see if that helps. Or maybe try, highlighting just the important dates or something like that. I do recommend that you handwrite the notes and not type them up, both because you need to use handwritten notes on quizzes and tests, and also because studies have shown that if you're handwriting something, you have a better chance of remembering it than if you're typing. I am not a scientist. I can't tell you why. I think it's muscle memory, and you have to go a little slower when you handwrite sometimes. But that is what studies have shown. So just keep that in mind, that that's a form of studying, and you can use them on quizzes and tests. Print notes and lessons or save to PDF. You can print your lessons. I don't know how many of you know that, but you're able to print lessons off. You can work on them offline then, or save them if you need to, or if you're somebody who maybe just doesn't want to do as much screen time all the time, like maybe you're like, oh, I'm feeling kind of headachy today or something, and I just don't want to stare at a screen. You can always print off the lessons, go do them, bring them back, type in your answers, and you're good to go. So just keep that in mind if that's something that helps you. Take advantage of the second attempt. There's not always that option, but if there is that option available, make sure you're using it just to, boost your grade a little bit, and so that you're really cementing the material in your head. Submit corrections. There is a lesson in the orientation course number 7, and there's a video on this link, or on this presentation that you'll get as well. And that'll just walk you through how you can submit corrections. A lot of teachers will work with students on tests to do test corrections for partial credit. That's a great way to both, again, cement that material, make sure you're getting it, and then also maybe raise your grade if it was a little lower than what you were hoping for. Always reach out to your teacher, just see what they say about that. And that ties into the next point, which is reach out to teachers. So make sure that you're communicating with your teachers. The great thing about Ignition, and I don't think enough students use this, is that if you're on a lesson and you have a question about a specific problem, there is a help box on that problem that you can send a message to your teacher, and it says which question you're on. So instead of just sending a really generic message that says, like, I don't understand this, which is students' favorite question sometimes, and not unfair, because you are saying, I'm confused, I don't know what's going on. But if you're on a question and you send it from that question and you say, I don't understand this part of this question, like maybe I don't understand what you mean by an example here or something like that, your teacher can then look and say, oh, okay, it's this question, this assignment, here are some extra resources, etc. So again, the more specific you can be about why you don't understand, the better when you're reaching out to teachers. It just helps them narrow it down, and it saves you from going back and forth a lot. Like I said, the dreaded question on both sides of, like, I don't understand, and then you have to get the response of, like, well, what don't you understand? And then you have to try to explain. And you just go back and forth a lot. And it's just a lot easier if up front you're kind of just telling them, I don't understand this lesson, this part of this lesson, whatever, as specific as you can get. And I know, again, like I said, sometimes it might just be like, I don't understand this whole lesson. But even if you say that, that's still pretty specific information for your teacher, and they might be able to help you with that. Request tutoring and join group Zoom sessions, included in Gold and Diamond support. Tutoring is great. Y'all who have access to tutoring, use it on the classes that you're struggling with or the classes that you need more help with. That gives you that one-on-one time with that teacher to kind of discuss things, like, especially like I said, if you hit like a lesson and you're like, I don't understand this whole concept, great tutoring material, because instead of having to like read through a big response, you can set up a time to talk with the teacher and just like get walked through that concept. The group Zoom sessions are also really helpful. So you can watch a teacher kind of get in depth on things, and just, get that information. They also are uploaded to, I believe, Livebinder afterwards. So if you miss that, then you can go ahead and look there. And now, as promised, I'm going to talk a little bit about Livebinder here real quick. So what is Livebinder? A lot of you are 7th sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. So if you've been with us, you're probably like, Miss Benedict, I know already, and that's great. But Livebinder is a great resource that aligns with your assignments. And essentially, you can go in and just see more information per subject. I know that when I work with students in high school, we use the math one a lot because students will hit a concept in math and they'll be like, I don't understand this at all. And then if we look in Livebinder, we'll see something like, oh, here's 3 videos that walk through how to do the question specifically. And so the student can kind of see it visually. And then once they see it visually, they go, oh, okay, it makes more sense. Because we all pick up information differently and we all pick up information differently for different subjects. So sometimes, you might not need a video. Sometimes you might. Livebinder is going to be where those things live. It's compiled by your teachers, which means that the person who is teaching the class has gone in and added what they think are helpful extra resources. So that can be really helpful as well. So you can kind of see what your teacher is getting at there. There's a link to access Livebinder in here. You can see a great picture down here where it shows you go by grade level and then you go by class and you can go by lesson from there. And then there's a video on how to use it on here as well. So when you get sent these slides, just remember that you'll have time to kind of watch those videos and figure it out. Again, if you haven't used Livebinder, you're missing out on so many extra resources that might help you when you're confused. I have a lot of students who use it sometimes for every lesson, and they say it helps a lot. So I definitely recommend checking it out. And now I'm going to hand it over to Mrs. Schneider to talk about how to study for quizzes and tests.
Okay, so I always recommend taking advantage of the second attempt that you get on quizzes. You also get it on assignments. So if your score is less than a C, a 73% on your first attempt, then you can get a second attempt. So I recommend utilizing that. Also take handwritten notes because you can use those on tests and quizzes. So that could be really helpful. Reread your notes in order to study. Rewrite key concepts from your notes, because sometimes that repetition can really help. Add information to your notes as you're going along and learning in the lessons. Using different colors to highlight important information can sometimes be helpful for like those visual learners. Also, you can skim your daily lessons and quizzes in preparation for tests. Also, you can practice self-testing before taking an actual test using note cards or just reviewing your notes and trying to repeat information out loud or rewriting information. This is also a list of helpful resources that we have. If you need any of these links, you can click on them when we send out the presentation. There is our e-library, which is called Sora. We recommend that. There's also our knowledge base. So if you have any general questions, you can search them in our knowledge base. It's kind of like using Google, but specifically for Enlidium. So I always recommend that you go there if you just have like a basic general question. And if you need access to IXL, you can email ixl@enlidiumacademy.com. That is just a good resource for practicing, like for math and English, to help you improve in your classes. It doesn't count for a grade or anything. You don't get credit for using it, but it's just good practice. So if you want access to that, you can send an email to that email address. And then you can also see what's included in your support level by clicking that link that's provided there. So just make sure that you're utilizing all the resources that are available in your support level, like live group sessions, for example, and tutoring is another example of that.
All right, I am going to talk about October being Bullying Awareness Month. So we're going to take a moment to talk about what bullying is and how we can prevent it. So as a definition of bullying, that is unwanted aggressive behavior among school-aged children that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. The behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. And both kids who are bullied and those who bully may have serious and lasting consequences. So some key concepts about bullying is that it's repeated. It's not just a one-time event. And there's also often a power imbalance, whether that be socially, academically, it can be a number of different things. And examples of bullying would include name calling, making fun of someone, or unwelcome teasing. It can also be physical, like pushing and shoving or damaging someone's property. And we have also seen an increase in cyberbullying as students and kiddos have increased access to technology. So the definition of cyberbullying would be using technology such as the internet, email, cell phones, or pictures being sent back and forth to hurt or harm someone else. So some common examples of cyberbullying would be sending mean text messages, posting statements online about somebody that are unkind or even untrue, sending pictures or posting pictures that aren't yours to share. Maybe somebody shared something with you in confidence. We don't want to be posting that without anybody's permission. Also making negative comments about someone online, or agreeing with somebody who posts something hurtful. So even if somebody posted something and you go along with it, that can be a form of cyberbullying as well. Thankfully, there are things that you can do if you are being bullied or if you're witnessing cyberbullying. First, which you can talk to your parents or a trusted adult in your life. So besides your parents, some trusted adults could be youth leaders at your church, a teacher, a principal. You can reach out to your counselor ad litem just to have support so you don't have to go through this alone. And trusted adults can be a really great resource to help you work through this type of situation. If you're being bullied, don't blame yourself. Bullying is never your fault. It's always going to be the fault of the person who is being the bully. If you are being bullied, remember to act confident, hold your head up, and stand up straight, and remember who you are. Your identity is in Christ, and God loves you. And we need to remember that even when we're going through a difficult time. Also, be sure to avoid situations as much as you're able to that might lead to bullying. So, if there's somebody who is a bully to you, try your best not to be alone in the same space as them. Surround yourself with other students or friends because oftentimes bullying happens when it is just two people. Don't resort to violence if you are being bullied. We don't want to return violence for more violence. That is not the best answer. We also want to refuse to help bully other people. So if somebody's trying to bring you in and bully somebody else, do your absolute best to resist that peer pressure. Find a teacher or adult if you're witnessing bullying. So even if you're not the one directly being bullied, if you're seeing someone else be bullied, we don't just want to stand by. We want to bring in an adult or somebody who can stop the situation. And encourage the bullied person. So if you're friends with somebody who's being bullied, encourage them to talk to their parents or a trusted adult. And this can be scary at times. And if your friend who's being bullied is feeling hesitant, you can even offer to go with them to talk with the trusted adult so that they have somebody else. So let's talk a little bit about how to stay safe online. You are all online students, so you're using the internet to some extent on a regular basis. So it's really important to find tools to help us stay safe online. So first of all, be on the same page as your parents when considering what you're going to post, what websites you're visiting, or who you're chatting with. So if there's a website that you might be interested in using, whether that be social media or something else, having a conversation with your parent first and foremost is going to be really important because they can help you decipher what might be a safe website or a website that's not safe for you to visit. We would also recommend only talking to people that you know in real life when you're online. So maybe you have a follow request from somebody that you're not familiar with. I would recommend not accepting that. Only the people in your life need to be the ones to know what's going on in your life. Keep personal information private. So we want to avoid sharing our full name, our address, our location, phone number, where we go to school, or any passwords online. Those are things that need to be kept private so that you can protect your own identity. We also want to treat others like we want to be treated. We know that the Bible talks about that, and that doesn't just apply to your in-person life, it applies to your online life as well. So before you post, take a second to pause and think about how it would sound if you said it in person. And then, if it doesn't sound great when you say it out loud, don't post it. We want to be treating people well, whether we're online or in person. Definitely be careful when you're clicking files or downloading things. Doing so on your computer could potentially have someone steal your information. So just be extra cautious if there's a link that looks unsafe or you're not sure about, again, talk with an adult and they can help you figure that situation out. Just because you see something posted online doesn't mean it's true. And it's easy to just automatically assume because we watch a video or we read something that says a certain fact that it would be true, but that is not always the case. And if you see something online you're unsure about or it makes you feel uncomfortable, talk with an adult in your life about it. And finally, we want to set limits and boundaries when it comes to screen time. As online students, you are getting a lot of time in front of the screen already. So when school is over for the day, it can be helpful to turn off the screens as much as possible, go outside, listen to music, or even just interact with your family and friends. That can be a good way of setting boundaries so that we're not constantly in front of screens. And we also want to encourage you to join a group. And groups are typically consisting of a small number of students, and they are run by your counseling team. So whether that is myself or one of your counselors, we will gather a group of students together who are interested in discussing a certain topic. So for example, that might be what it looks like to be a successful student, what it looks like to incorporate coping skills into your life, and we'll meet usually about 4 weeks or so, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the group. And we just have more in-depth conversations. That's a really good opportunity for you to get to know a member of your counseling team as well as other students. And we will use your feedback to determine which topics we use for upcoming groups. So definitely keep an eye out on your messages about groups that are upcoming. There will be a few throughout the rest of the school year, and there will be opportunity to RSVP for those as well. And now I will pass it back to Ms. Benedict, and she will be talking about how to get in contact with your counselor.
Hello, thank you. All right, so again, these slides are going to go out, so don't be, frantically typing links because that can be challenging. That's how we make mistakes. 6th and 7th grade students, your counselor is Mrs. Blackburn. You have probably heard from her this year in one form or another. 8th grade students, your counselor is Mrs. Schneider. Again, same thing. On here, you've got different emails. So if you're a 6th grader, make sure you're using the 6th grade email. 7th graders, 7th grade email. 8th graders, 8th grade email. That's pretty straightforward. There's also Calendly links on here. If you ever have something where you're like, it's just going to be easier for me or my parent to talk with the counselor, like on the phone or on a whatever, that is going to be the way to do it. So this will all go out to you, so don't worry about it. But here it is. And now we're going to answer some questions. I did get some questions chatted to us. Like I said, I'm going to go through in the order they were received. And we'll see how many we can get through. We've got some time, so I think we'll be able to get a lot of these, if not all of them. I did have someone who asked, what is a good grade? Which I actually thought was a really great question, just because it seems like a very easy answer, but it's really not, because good grades are more than just like getting an A in a class. It's really, your grades are really a sign that you are understanding and learning and growing, right? So for some of you, maybe that is getting an A in a class. Maybe, that's just the grade that you get. But really what's more important is that you are doing the best that you can and that you're always looking for room to grow. So for some of you, that might be like, okay, well, I got a C at this quarter. So like, how do I, score a little bit higher on my next test? Like, I got my test back and I got a 72%. Next time, what if I get a 75%? Or like, what can I do to kind of help with that? It's really just about, the most important thing is that you are just doing the best that you can. You're always putting forth your best effort, and that you're looking for new ways to kind of try to keep learning. Not everybody's going to be good at everything. God didn't give us, skills in every subject, and that's okay. So if you're like, oh, some of my grades are not, they're not all A pluses, that might be okay. You might be doing the best that you can be doing, and that's great. All right. I did see someone mention that we have an AI tutor, which is kind of yes and kind of no. That's not a feature that we have out yet, and that's completely unrelated to tutoring with your teacher. If you're tutoring with your teacher, you have one-on-one time on like a Zoom session with your teacher, and that's a real person. They're not AI. So let's see. Another student asked, y'all are asking just the deep questions today. Why do we have bullying? And we did kind of discuss it some, but I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was a good question and it does come up a lot. and that bullying can happen for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's really difficult to pinpoint a specific reason to bullying overall. It can come from a place of insecurity or fear on the part of the bully. Sometimes people who bully feel bad about themselves, and so they're trying to bring other people to their level to feel more powerful. Other times they might just not know how to handle the emotions they're feeling, so they might come out poorly. But regardless, the key takeaway is that bullying is not the right way to deal with these situations, whatever might be the source of them. It's important to remember that we all deserve to be treated well and with kindness and respect. And if someone is bullying someone else, you or a friend or whoever, that's just a sign that they don't understand that yet. So that's what's important to keep in mind. I would also I recommended this to the last group of kids. Right now, if your parents or family members are on the Parent app, they're doing a whole week long just bullying awareness week. There's really good videos on there. There's going to be a bullying or a pledge to not be a bully at the end of the week that you can give and just kind of like cement with other Enlidium students that you are choosing not to bully and you're rising above that and being a bystander. So if you have family members in the Parent app, definitely check those out together. If you don't, get your family members in the Parent app because there's a lot of really good information there. So students who want to join a group, like Mrs. Wilson said, that information will be going out from your counselor whenever the groups are available. So just keep an eye out for that. The groups are focused on skills. So they might be academic skills, they might be social skills, things like that. So it kind of just varies depending on what seems to be the issues that are most prevalent among students at the time. If you are looking for something that's more like a social group, so you're like, I just want to chat with other students, I really recommend checking on our knowledge base for clubs. So a lot of the clubs are still available for students to join. So that could be equestrian club, art club. I know there's running club. There's more than that too, but there's a lot of social clubs that you could join and interact with other students. I would also encourage you to go to Bible studies. I am the co-leader for the 10th grade Bible study group. A lot of the counselors help lead or co-lead Bible studies. And it's a really good way just to kind of like get in the word with other students, which is awesome. And then also just interact with students in your own grade level too while you're doing that. So look at those as well. So that's a little bit different. All right, will there be work due during Thanksgiving break? No. No new work is assigned during the break. However, you can log in and either catch up or get ahead if you choose to. You do not have to, but that is an option for you. I know some students are busy all Thanksgiving break and they're like, no, thank you. But some students don't have anything else to do and want to get ahead and be done sooner, and that's a great way to do that, or get caught up, either way. You can also use the print the assignments. I'm sorry. You can print assignments. And I do have some students who, like, if they have to go on a road trip or something like that, they'll print off assignments to work on in the car. Then you would just type in your answers when you get home and submit it then. I did see a good question that was like, are we allowed to use ChatGPT? And that's a really challenging one because there are some good uses of ChatGPT and then there are some not good uses of ChatGPT. If in doubt, I say reach out to your teacher or a trusted adult and say, would it be okay if I used it for this? And that trusted adult will say, that should be okay. Or they will say, nope, don't do that. So that's what I would recommend. Oh, let's see. Sorry, y'all are chatting up a storm, which is great, but I'm just trying to make sure I'm not missing anybody's questions. I did see someone give an example of sometime they were playing a video game and then someone was mean to them and then cussed at them, and then was that cyberbullying? That is an example of cyberbullying. Yeah, we don't, obviously in those situations, sometimes the best move can be just to turn off the game's chat, get out of there and don't participate. On the flip side, also don't be the person who is saying you hate people in chat or participating in that kind of situation, because that is a form of bullying. All right. How long can we keep an assignment due? So ideally, we love for students to turn their assignments in on time because it just helps you with your pacing and it keeps things from getting too unmanageable or out of hand. However, you're not going to get docked points for a late assignment. You just have to make it up. The reason I emphasize staying on track so much is because it can be pretty easy to make up like a day or two here or there. Like you're sick for a day, you can make that up. We have Fridays, we have the weekend or some holidays. That's no big deal. That's very easy to do. I have kids who will be gone for like, a couple of days and maybe they got a little bit ahead, but not all the way. They can make that up. That's not a big deal. That's just a couple extra of assignments or an extra day of work. What can happen is if you just kind of continue to fall behind a little bit at a time and not catch up, and then suddenly you're a week behind, suddenly you're 2 weeks behind, you have a lot to catch up on at the end of the year. And you don't want to do that because then it does become unmanageable. So key tip, and I give this to all my high schoolers and their families, is every either end of day Thursday or Friday morning, check in with your family. So sit down with whoever is at home with you, look at your Ignitia, see if you're caught up in all your classes. And if you aren't, come up with a game plan to catch up in the ones you're behind on. So that might mean like, okay, you finished the week and you're 3 assignments behind in English. What's your game plan? Are you going to do them Friday? Are you going to do an extra English assignment every day? Make sure you have a plan. I would recommend writing it down like on a sticky note or somewhere you can see it and stick to it, and then just follow through on it. Because like I said, you're not going to get penalized for getting a little bit behind, but eventually it kind of catches up with you and you do have to finish all your work by the end of the year, and it's much easier just to be on top of it in smaller pieces rather than having it kind of snowball out of hand a little bit. And like I mentioned at the top of the webinar, it's the first quarter, so there is lots of time to fix everything. And also reach out to your counselor. If you're very concerned about where you're at with your progress or your grades, just let your counselor know. We can get you connected with your teachers or whoever else. All right. Well, that's all the questions I'm seeing. Thank you all so much for being here and for just having such good and thoughtful questions today. Y'all are great. This is the last school day of the week. So if you're done with school, congratulations. Have a great weekend. And if you're not, I hope you have a great rest of your school day. And we will see you around. Bye.